In the 1990s, the U.S. Army had a problem. They were jealous. They watched the Air Force destroy Baghdad with invisible F-117 stealth fighters. They watched the Navy launch invisible cruise missiles. The Army wanted in on the game. They wanted their own ghost, so they wrote a check. A very large check. Over the next 22 years, the Pentagon spent $7 billion developing a helicopter that looked like it came from a Batman movie. It was silent. It was invisible to radar. It was the smartest aircraft ever built. But today, you won't find it on any battlefield. You will only find it in a museum in Alabama. Welcome to ShadowWorks. Today we open the file on the RAH-66 Comanche, the most advanced, expensive, and useless helicopter the U.S. military ever built. Building a stealth helicopter is a nightmare. A normal helicopter is a radar reflector's dream. The spinning rotor blades act like a giant disco ball for radar waves. The rivets, the landing gear, the missiles hanging off the wings, they all light up on enemy screens. Boeing and Sikorsky had to rethink everything. They built the fuselage entirely out of composite materials, basically high-tech plastic. They buried the engines deep inside the tail to hide the heat. They designed the landing gear to retract. But the coolest trick was the guns. On an Apache, the missiles hang off the side. On the Comanche, they were hidden inside internal bay doors that snapped open only for a split second to fire. The result? On radar, this 5-ton war machine looked like a bird. It had a radar cross-section 360 times smaller than an Apache, but the Comanche wasn't designed to be a brawler. It was a scout. Its job was to sneak deep behind enemy lines, find the Soviet tanks, and digitally hand off the targets to the heavy hitters behind them. To do this, it needed a brain. The Comanche had millions of lines of code. It had a longbow fire control radar and advanced infrared sensors. It was the first digital native helicopter. It was also fast. It used a shrouded tail rotor called a fantail. This allowed it to fly sideways at 70 miles per hour and whip around 180 degrees in under 5 seconds. It was an aerodynamic miracle, but miracles are expensive and heavy. As the Army added more gadgets, the weight ballooned. The engine struggled. The cost per unit skyrocketed to $60 million per helicopter. By 2004, the Comanche was finally ready for production. But the world had ended. The Soviet Union was gone. The massive tank battles in Europe never happened. Instead, the U.S. was fighting insurgents in caves in Afghanistan and streets in Iraq. You don't need a $60 million stealth helicopter to find a guy in a Toyota Hilux. But the real killer was the Predator drone. The military realized a cheap, unmanned drone could do the same scouting job. It could stay in the air for 24 hours. And if it got shot down, nobody wrote a letter to a grieving mother. The Comanche was a Cold War relic built for a war that didn't exist anymore. On February 23, 2004, the Army canceled the program. $7 billion, 2 prototypes, 0 combat missions, or ... was it 0? In 2011, during the raid that killed Osama bin Laden, one of the helicopters crashed in the compound. Navy SEALs blew it up, but the tail section survived. Aviation experts looked at the photos and gasped. It was a stealth tail rotor. It looked exactly like the technology developed for the Comanche. The Comanche died, but its organs were harvested. The billions spent on stealth tech weren't wasted. They were just moved into the shadows, helping to build the secret helicopters of the 160th SOAR. The Comanche was killed by politics and drones, but some planes are killed by their own ambition. Join us next time as we investigate the Caspian Sea Monster, a Soviet machine that was half plane, half ship, and bigger than a jumbo jet. Click here to subscribe so you don't miss the Equinoplane.